reports of the blaze, and the
Hey,
case
what
was
up, guys?
quickly
Welcome back to my
closed.
channel.
Rumors and urban legends have since circulated that
So
he
y'all
was
see
burned
how
to
that
death
got me?
by a vigilante mob of angry parents, but no evidence ever came to light, and
I
none
feel
of the
like going
parents
to the
ever
kitchen
spoke of the matter
because
publicly.
I want to see if there's more snacks. Alright, let's go see if there's more snacks,
That
guys.
same day, Freddie's mother, Amanda Kruger,
The lights is on.
after an
I'm going back in
extensive
the room.
manhunt, failed to find any trace of her. She was
Don't be no
presumed dead,
bitch.
and it was memorialized in Springwood Cemetery with a special tombstone.
Last night.
And sauce. Microwavable minutes. Nissan Cup Noodles Stir Fry in 4 takeout flavors.
After an intensive manhunt, he was arrested by the police the next day with a switchblade in his possession, which police suspected was the murder weapon. However, later forensic testing would prove this to be false. Lieutenant Donald Thompson, the father of Nancy Thompson, made the arrest. Rob vehemently denied that he committed the crime and hung himself in his jail cell that night in an apparent suicide. He had used his bedsheet and tied it around his neck before hanging himself from a window in his cell. Glenn Lance was the next victim when he was slain alone in his bedroom 5 days later with no witnesses to the crime. The attending paramedics described the scene as one of complete devastation, and the police refused to release further details of the murder, only that they had no leads in the case. The same night, 40-year-old Marge Thompson, who was the mother of Nancy Thompson, was found to have died mysteriously in her sleep. All 3 cases remain unsolved to this day. Nancy Thompson was admitted to psychiatric care that same week, following the death of her mother and the murder of her friends. The twist to the story is that sources close to her family revealed that Nancy believed Freddy Krueger was responsible for these horrific crimes, and that he had been terrorizing her and other young Springwood residents in their dreams with his trademark bladed glove. As preposterous as these claims were, according to the Springwood slasher urban legend, there was actually a link to these children and to Freddy Krueger. The legend states that their parents were part of the rumored mob who burned Freddy to death, and it was said that before Freddy died, he promised he'd somehow get his revenge.
Yeah. Alright, let's look at the real Michael Myers.
What's up, guys? Enigma here, and today I'm going to be telling you the real-life story of a man who would, in the dead of night, break into homes dressed in a rubber mask just like this one and sexually assault people. Not only this, but he was actually known to stalk his victims in a similar fashion to a famous movie character. The story of the Beast of Jersey would, in part, go on to inspire the costume and traits of Michael Myers, probably the greatest scary movie villain of all time. The resemblance of the costume is uncanny. The extent of the terrors committed by the Beast of Jersey were thought to be known until recently, when an inquest was held that actually found that among all of the despicable acts he committed, he would also prowl the halls of children's care homes dressed in his rubber mask, looking for victims. Children who had by this point grown into adults recalled seeing this face in the dead of night peering into their rooms through the keyhole, lit by a flickering light. It seemed like something straight out of a horror movie. This is the story of the Beast of Jersey, the real-life Michael Myers. The Beast of Jersey was known to watch his victims for large periods of time, staring at them whilst they slept, and would sometimes go days or even weeks before striking them. In the 1960s, Edward Paisenall, son-in-law to the owner of La Preference Children's Home, which was located on the island of Jersey, was a regular visitor who would often help around with bits of maintenance, even dressing once as Father Christmas for their Christmas party. However, when night came, children reported hearing faint creaks in the floorboards, and would often see shapes moving outside the door. The boogeyman was indeed at large in the house, and every night it would be the same thing. The children would be lying in their beds and the sounds would continue. The children who dared to open their eyes to observe what was going on would often see a rubber mask looking in on them through the keyhole. Children in the attic rooms would see the same face, only this time through the floorboards below them. Imagine lying in bed and looking down only to see a mask staring back at you. It's terrifying. This would go on for nights, weeks, and sometimes months on end. If they were lucky, they would only see the shape peering in on their bedroom at night. The children who weren't so lucky would, at the dead of night, be pulled from their beds by their feet and dragged away. Many children shared rooms and would often see their friends being taken away by the boogeyman, sometimes never to return. No one suspected Edward, for the shape wore a mask, and so no identifiable features could be noted. The main reason why Edward was allowed to reign free for so long was that all eyes were focused on a local fisherman named Alfonso Legasteles, and he was known for going on walks in the middle of the night. And despite the police regularly searching his house and basically harassing him for over a year, the public was so convinced that it was him that they literally burned his home to the ground. Gastelois, fearing for his life, forced himself into exile to a faraway place, and that's how they actually managed to clear his name. The attacks continued whilst he was away. So who was it? It would actually take an entire decade after this before the police could capture the real-life boogeyman. And this all happened to sheer happenstance. He was pulled over by the police on a routine traffic stop, where they found the terrifying latex mask and creepy outfit in his car. He was then arrested and sentenced to 30 years for numerous hideous crimes. At least 30 sleeping children awoke to themselves being dragged by their feet at the dead of night by this shape wearing this horrifying mask. He would then assault the children in the most severe way before threatening to pay them a visit again if they spoke of what happened. This was thought to be the extent of his crimes until 2008, where the decomposing remains of several children were found beneath the cellar floor of another Jersey care home. Not only this, but bones and teeth of 65 different children were found in the cellar and surrounding fields. Both of these child care homes where the attacks took place are still open and in operation to this very day. And who knows what other bodies lay beneath. And sadly, the Hall de la Garenne Children's Home, after being visited by the Beast of Jersey, was later visited by the notorious child abuser Jimmy Savile. Corruption by the staff of the care homes and the police was suspected, as Edward was able to commit huge amounts of crimes whilst going undetected. Surely the numerous missing children from the area would raise some form of suspicion. Why did the care homes not report it? And why did no one notice when potentially 65 children went missing from a single care home? Apparently the police and care home staff were keen to hush up the murders and abuse cases, so much so that the Jersey police chief was suspended over links to the crimes. The link between Edward and the second care home was not really well known, but the method of the attacks are very similar, and it is thought that he must have had a confidant within the home, as he was allowed such free entry in what was supposed to be a secure location. The Beast of Jersey is sadly one of the many terrifying examples of negligence and inaction by the police, which allowed, if true, one of the most prolific serial killers in the world to strike. If the estimates are correct, he could have killed 65 children, which would make him one of the world's most prolific serial killers. Not only that, but these were all children, which would make him the most notorious child killer in history. And unlike others, he went completely undetected, with suspect killings only being discovered years after his death. He was never charged with any murders, so if not him, who could have put what seemed to be dead bodies in the ground? All we know is that a boogeyman did it. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I know it's a bit different from usual, so please do let me know what you think. And if you enjoyed it, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.
Let's call it Boston. Real life Michael Myers. Easy up right there. Okay, we're on real life Michael Myers again. Okay, I guess that's it. What the hell? How's that it though? The real story, okay. There we go. The real story.
Halloween is a 1978 American slasher film directed and scored by John Carpenter, co-written with producer Deborah Hill, and starring Donald Pleasence and Jamie Lee Curtis in her film debut. The plot tells about a mental patient who was committed to a sanitarium for murdering his teenage sister on Halloween night when he was 6 years old. 15 years later, he escapes and returns to his hometown where he stalks a female babysitter and her friends, while under the pursuit of his psychiatrist. Filming took place in Southern California in May 1978 before premiering in October, where it grossed $70 million, becoming one of the most profitable independent films ever made. Halloween spawned a film franchise comprising 11 films and growing, which helped construct an extensive backstory for its antagonist Michael Myers, sometimes narratively diverging entirely from previous installments. A remake was released in 2007, followed by a sequel in 2009. An 11th installment was released in 2018, with the new film Halloween Kills due for release in 2021. For the original movie, it took approximately 10 days to write the screenplay. According to a Fangoria interview with Deborah Hill, the idea was that you couldn't kill evil, and that's how we came up about the story. We went back to the old idea of Samhain, that Halloween was the night where all the souls are let out to wreak havoc on the living, and then came up with the story about the most evil kid who ever lived. And when John came up with his fable of a town with a dark secret of someone who once lived there, and now that evil has come back, that's what made Halloween work. Many of the script details were drawn from Carpenter's and Hill's own backgrounds. The fictional town of Haddonfield, Illinois, was derived from Haddonfield, New Jersey, where Deborah Hill was raised. Several of the street names were taken from John Carpenter's hometown of Bowling Green, Kentucky. Laurie Strode was the name of one of Carpenter's old girlfriends, while Michael Myers was the name of an English producer who had produced such films as Assault on Precinct 13. Tommy Doyle was named after the character in Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window, and Dr. Loomis was derived from Sam Loomis from Psycho, the boyfriend of Marion Crane. Janet Leigh, who is the real-life mother of Jamie Lee Curtis. Sheriff Lee Brackett shared the name of a Hollywood screenwriter and frequent collaborator of Howard Hawks. Carpenter's inspiration for the evil that Michael embodied came from a visit he had taken during college to a psychiatric institution in Kentucky. There, he visited a ward with his psychology classmates where the most serious mentally ill patients were held. Among those patients was an adolescent boy who possessed a blank, schizophrenic stare. Carpenter's experience inspired the characterization of Michael Myers in the film. Looking at the real-world basis for Michael Myers, Carpenter says a lot of things went into making Michael Myers, including urban legends and real-life psychopaths. Let's take a look at two of those now, starting with Edmund Kemper. Edmund Emil Kemper, born December 18, 1948, is an American serial killer, rapist, cannibal, and necrophile who murdered 10 people, including his paternal grandparents. Born December 18, 1948, is an American serial killer, rapist, cannibal, and necrophile who murdered 10 people, including his paternal grandparents and mother. He is noted for his large size at 6 feet 9 inches, and for his high intellect, possessing an IQ of 145. Kemper was nicknamed the Co-Ed Killer because most of his victims were female college students. Born in California, Kemper had a very disturbed upbringing. He moved to Montana with his abusive mother before returning to California, where he murdered his grandparents when he was 15. He was diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic and sentenced to a state hospital for the criminally insane. Released at the age of 21, after convincing psychiatrists he was rehabilitated, Kemper was regarded as non-threatening by his future victims. He targeted young female hitchhikers during his killing spree, luring them into his vehicle and driving them to secluded areas where he would murder them before taking their corpses back home to be decapitated, dismembered, and violated. Kemper then murdered his mother and one of her friends before turning himself in to the authorities. Found sane and guilty at his trial in 1973, Kemper requested the death penalty. Capital punishment was suspended at the time, and he instead received 8 concurrent life sentences. Since then, Kemper has been imprisoned at the California Medical Facility, where he is noted as a model prisoner. There is an urban legend regarding an adopted boy who was badly mistreated by his parents and resented the sister that received all of their love. One Halloween night, he finally snapped when she was allowed to go trick-or-treating and he wasn't. So he stabbed her to death when she came home and took all of her candy. Then he stabbed his parents. Police found him covered in blood, wearing a Halloween mask and eating the candy on his front porch. He was put in an insane asylum. 13 years later, at age 25, he killed 2 attendants, walked out of the doors of the asylum, and was never seen again. Numerous sightings and claims of murders by steers continue today. This story seems like rather a tall tale. There's no written record of Stanley Steers, making this story very hard to believe. I think we can safely put this one into the category of urban legend or myth. Ronald Clark O'Brien, October 19th, 1944, died March 31st, 1984, was nicknamed the Candyman and the man who killed Halloween. He was convicted of killing his 8-year-old son on Halloween 1974 with a cyanide-laced candy bar that was ostensibly collected during a trick-or-treat outing. He poisoned his son in order to claim life insurance money to ease his own financial troubles, as he was $100,000 in debt. He also gave poison candy to his daughter and 3 other children in an attempt to cover up his crime. However, neither his daughter nor the other children ate the poison candy. He was convinced of capital murder in June 1975 and sentenced to death. He was executed by lethal injection in March 1984.
Wow.
The night before Halloween, in the year 1975, Martha Moxley, 15-year-old girl, left her Connecticut home to attend a Halloween party. In the morning, she was found dead in the backyard, beaten to death. 25 years later, Michael Skakel, who was also 15 at the time of the slaying, was convicted of the murder and sentenced to 20 years in prison. However, he maintained his innocence, and in 2018, the Connecticut Supreme Court vacated his...
That's crazy, right, guys? That's why I should look up. The man who ruined Halloween. I feel like he wants me to like smoke him up. I don't know, man. Yeah, I know that's what he wants me to do. And I'm gonna do it, man. I'm gonna do it, boy. But in a little bit. What do you guys think? That's my brother.
his conviction. On Halloween night in 1957, Peter and Betty Fabinho thought that they were finished with the trick-or-treaters for the evening. But in the middle of the night, the doorbell of their Los Angeles home rang. Peter got out of bed and brought candy to the door. On the doorstep was a woman wearing a mask. She raised up her hand and shot him in the chest. He died instantly. According to the LA Times, police arrested a woman named Joan Rebel, who reportedly had a sexual relationship with Peter's wife, Betty. It is believed Rebel talked another woman, Goldine Pizer, into murdering Peter. Rebel was convicted of second-degree murder along with Pizer for 5 years to life in prison. Betty was never tried for any connection in her husband's death. These are some of the inspirations which may have contributed to John Carpenter's invention of one of the most iconic horror characters of our age, The Shape, Michael Myers. Through his contributions to cinema and music, director John Carpenter is part of an elite band of directors who have given us the ghost train ride of our
Alright, boy, man.
lives.
Don't forget to subscribe, comment, favorite part of the video. If you want to follow me, links in the description. Like the video, hit the notification bell, share the video with your friends. What else do you say? That's what you say. Alright, guys, see you guys in the video. Bow.